Hello and welcome to 10-Minute Tabletop. I'm Devin, and here are the biggest stories in tabletop gaming from the past week in 10 minutes or less so you can get back to playing the game. First up, we're talking about GenCon. GenCon is probably the largest tabletop gaming convention in North America. Rogue Caliber released some interesting data on Twitter last week. It was all a breakdown on the different games played at GenCon. Now, GenCon has a ticketing system used to purchase tickets for the different games that are being hosted at the convention. This data breaks down the sales of those tickets, but does not consider any kind of reconciliation. That's about the games that actually were played. This is just on the tickets sold. Now, many people go to GenCon go for two things. One, to buy stuff, and two, to play games. GenCon is a perfect opportunity to try indie games you've always wanted to play or to play test new games coming out. Now, as the above table shows, 10,000 of the 333,000 tickets sold were for D&D events. This includes all editions, although 5e brought in the most with 8,963 tickets sold. It is the largest number by far and takes up a sizable amount of space with 29% of players. But Pathfinder came in second with 2,400 tickets sold, and Dungeon Crawl Classics with 1,100. Then everything else comes in at about less than 1,000. However, 35% of ticket buyers ended up playing other RPGs. This is huge news. When you look at something like the State of Play from Roll20 in 2022 or 2021, 50% of people online playing using Roll20 as the VTT were playing Dungeons & Dragons. So to see only 30% of people at Gen Con playing Dungeons & Dragons is great news for other tabletop publishers. Now, this could be the OGL. Not as many people are interested in playing D&D. They wanted to try something else. It could be that the entire community is just growing so much in size that people are now thirsty for other games. Now, I couldn't find any other historical data on previous years to compare this with. Just this 30% is incredibly interesting. Now, part of me thinks this might be the case as most people who go to Gen Con might actually already have a tabletop gaming group and they're already playing D&D. So this is a chance for them to play something differently. Either way, we will save this and we'll compare it with next year's numbers. And our next story is about Magic the Gathering. In Hasbro's Q2 financial reports, it shows that the Lord of the Rings set that Hasbro put out earlier this year is on set to be the largest release they have ever done. It is officially the second highest Magic the Gathering release of all time, only to be surpassed by Modern Horizons 2. Despite being released in less than 2 months ago, Hasbro projects that The Lord of the Rings Tale of Middle-earth is on track to become the highest-selling Magic the Gathering set of all time. This achievement aligns with expectations, as last year, Wizards of the Coast president Cynthia Williams anticipated that the crossover set would outperform the regular MTG releases. The reigning top-selling set, Modern Horizons 2, features potent cards designed for the modern format. It's claimed the title of Magic's best-selling set as of October 22. However, The Lord of the Rings is forecasted to exhibit a prolonged success trajectory, with Hasbro CEO Chris Cox in an earnings conference call that it's projected to generate $200 million in revenue within 7 months of release, which is significantly quicker than Modern Horizons 2, which took over 2 years to achieve that same milestone. Now, why is this important? It shows that Wizards is probably going to continue to go deep into the IP of the Beyond Worlds sets. But the other problem is, those sets are actually cost them quite a bit of money in royalties and licensing fees, which means they're probably going to end up trying to raise prices on the consumer. And some of these Beyond Worlds releases haven't done as well as Lord of the Rings. So is Lord of the Rings a flash in the pan for Magic the Gathering, or are these signs of a stronger trend? But we'll see, because we do have the Doctor Who release coming out, the Jurassic Park, the Final Fantasy, among others. And lastly, we're talking about Warhammer. Previews went out this past week for Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. This is the first Warhammer CRPG since the 90s with Warhammer Quest. Developed by Owlcat Games, Rogue Trader has been impressing players in its closed beta since June, boasting a rich backdrop of intergalactic politics and grimdark lore. Rogue Trader stands out as a captivating addition to Games Workshop's sci-fi repertoire. Previews revealed intricate decision-making akin to like an XCOM. Each character's unique skills and roles come to the forefront, from your tanks to your intelligent strategist. In the previews, a combat scene highlights a momentum mechanic that rewards well-executed actions and clever maneuvering. Polygon is quoted that the game draws parallel to Baldur 3's success, which has invigorated the CRPG genre. The previews have a lot of optimism for Rogue Trader's future, fueled by the growing enthusiasm for CRPGs, definitely led by Baldur's Gate 3. Why is this important? Warhammer is no stranger to video games. They have XCOM-like games, they have RTS games, they have first-person shooter games. They don't really have a CRPG, so this is a huge one for them. Off of the wave of the success from Baldur's Gate 3, this could be huge for Warhammer. It could also be huge for companies like Cubicle 7, which hold the license for the tabletop RPG games for Warhammer. As we've seen a renewed interest from a lot of other people after playing Baldur's Gate 3, wanting to get into D&D, maybe we'll see the same thing with people wanting to get into tabletop RPGs with Warhammer. And those are our biggest stories from this past week. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to support the show, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/TotalPartyChill. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.